check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
There was this one place not far from here where there's kind of a thicket there, and I don't know what kind of brush it is, but they're close together. They're wide enough that I can kind of zigzag between them, but not very quick. I'm pushing branches out of the way and whatnot. But because it's so thick, those rabbits, they love it. And any time of day you can go there and find them. Usually chewing on the bottom of that brush. And so I was in there, and boom, there goes the rabbit. Down comes the bird. I see him down, and then the crash of the branches, and that rabbit's hollering, and I'm starting to push my way as fast as I can, trying to get to him, just trying to push through all this brush and stuff. And I had seen, when we had first got there, like 1 or 2 red tails around, flying out, because it was a big enough area. They weren't like right up on us. They were well, as soon as that rabbit starts hollering, all of a sudden there's 7 of them, and I'm like, where did the other 5 come from? And they're all converging on my bird.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, and this episode will mark the last episode that I recorded while I was in Oklahoma earlier this summer, and be the last one that you hear from some Oklahoma falconers for a little while at least. But this last episode features Brooke Reed, and Brooke is relatively new in the sport still, but she's very active, very involved, and is a pretty rigorous hunter. So it was nice getting a chance to meet her and talk to her about her career thus far in falconry, and already wanting to help out with her state club and other things, and also how she balances everything with another unique career I got a chance to talk to her about as well. So hope you've enjoyed all these episodes that have featured a lot of different falconers from Oklahoma, and thanks again so much to Rob Rainey and everyone for helping make this happen. It was a good time, and glad I got a chance to meet everyone and talk to them about their falconry stories and careers so far. So that being said, we'll jump into this conversation with Brooke Reed, and here we go. Well, Brooke, thank you for coming. I appreciate you guys showing up and giving me, an hour-ish of your time today. How much did Rob have to convince you and rope you into doing this?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I get a little bit nervous about interviews, but I think it's a really cool opportunity, and I was really curious about listening to other things. Plus, it was Rob that asked me. He's my sponsor, so just about anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we've already heard a lot about you over the weekend.
Oh no. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I'll let you grill him later on all the things that he's shared on about you and on your behalf and in your honor, stories wise and everything. But it's all good because you don't have to be nervous or anything. I don't like using the evil I word. I consider these more straight conversations and shooting the shizzy, so to speak, about falconry and stuff. And I don't like using the evil I word. Gotcha. So it's all good.
More casual, and he's already outed me on all the mistakes I made, so we're okay.
We'll find out. We'll talk more about that stuff later. But no, I mean, thanks, and glad you're willing to come and have fun for a little bit and talk shop. And To start off with, though, you mentioned just a little bit ago, I mean, you do video, you said, right?
Yeah. So I work in film and video production, television, movies, commercials, corporate, all that stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pretty much strictly on more of a, just kind of contract type basis, or do you work for a particular company or?
No, I freelance.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mostly, my background is in rigging and lighting, but I've also done some work in the office and some other departments.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, so it sounds like, we have some sort of kind of similar paths in some facets of life anyway, with the, audio and the video side of things. And so, I mean, did you go to school for this or?
Yeah. So I started at like an art camp, and that's where I really got interested. But I went to Oklahoma City Community College and took their film and video production course there, have my associates. And then I just started working on set and learning the rest on the job. And I guess my first production was about 10 or 11 years ago, somewhere in that range.
Well, you've been at it for a little bit then.
A little bit.
Yeah. Long enough to at least feel like you kind of, sort of, ish. I don't have no sort of kind of what you're doing.
Have a notion of what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed, I know for me in the audio world, it was just like, every time I kind of felt like I was starting to get a pretty comfortable grasp, I would, get around some other friends of mine or meet other like producers or engineers and stuff. And then I'd watch them do some stuff and be like, okay, well, I guess I don't know anything, Yeah.
I mean, I think that's that way in anything, whether it's like work or even falconry or just anything at all. There's always something new to learn from somebody else who's got different experiences or different techniques or access to different types of tools or mechanisms. It's, if you keep an open mind, there's something to learn. Anybody, anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, especially in that world too, and when it comes to, the arts and, it doesn't matter if it's video, audio, whatever the case is. I know for me, I mean, it's nice to have some kind of like fundamental education. I went to the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences out in Tempe, Arizona, for my foundational audio knowledge or whatever. But to be honest, I mean, it's helped a little bit, but with this kind of stuff, you don't really, at least in my opinion, start really learning what you need to learn until you just start doing it.
Yeah.
And because there's just so many things that you're taught in some programs and things like that kind of keep you from thinking out of the box or doing certain things that you almost have to in the actual like real world application settings.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was kind of your experience or not too.
There is a lot, and there's a lot of variables and things that, like, even filming on location versus in a studio, it's just completely different in how you have to approach it, or even if you go different places. So sometimes I learn about things people do in California, and their weather is so different that they have to approach it differently when they come here. Like, we have a lot of wind, and we had a lot of high wind. And so sometimes the way that they set something up doesn't work here. It's not safe, but it works really well there. But then they also have a lot more indoor experience. So they might be, hey, this is a faster, more efficient way to do this when we're not outside. And so we can swap a lot of knowledge and information that way.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's from region to region, place to place, you always are having to kind of adjust on the fly for different circumstances. And it's the same way with that. It doesn't even matter if it's something as small as my podcast setup, or whether or not you're doing just full on, like an actual film set or whatever the case is. There's always certain things you're going to have to work around and duct tape and rig up and everything else. Because I know I've done stuff kind of in the spur of the moment, anywhere from a setting like this in a living room to hell, even like a bar outside, patio of a bar and stuff. And like, there's always just little things that you kind of have to navigate and stuff. It can be challenging, but yeah. As far as, what's been your favorite thing to do so far, to work on?
My favorite, as far as like the work or the people?
Yes.
I think one of my favorite productions to work on as far as what we did, just because it had so many new concepts and challenges for me, was Stillwater. They had most of the movie was filmed in France, but they had a unit here in Oklahoma for a few weeks, and that was a lot of fun. And people, that's also one of my favorite as far as crews that I worked with, but there's been a lot. I have a lot of like really favorite people here in Oklahoma, especially my mentors. We've got some great people. I don't know if you want me naming names or not. I don't know.
Well, that's completely up to you.
But like, no, there's some really great people. I think one of like my favorite mentors is John Shryock. He's here from Oklahoma, but he's done stuff all over the place. So anytime that he's on set, it's going to be a good day. But yeah, I think just a specific film, because a lot of the locals I've worked with lots of different films on, but a specific film, Stillwater was one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites for people was the whole crew on, the working title was Sleeping in Plastic. I don't remember what the title was changed to when it was released. I think something about Perla. Well, I don't remember. A lot of times the title gets changed after we work on it. But those are some like of the really good ones, but there's a lot.
Well, and do you prefer to work on like an actual movie versus like a TV show or like something that's I mean, which type of production do you, I mean, or do you do much in the ways also of like theater or other types of stuff as well? Or
I've done a little bit of theater. I like being on set much more than theater because there's a lot more range for creativity there. I like narratives. So if it's a film or even just a television series that's narrative, I like that. I've worked a lot of reality, but I don't care for that. So if I were to rank it, movies and then narrative series, and then after that I'd go down to like corporate and commercials and reality at the very, very bottom. Documentaries above reality. Documentaries, it really depends. Some of them are super interesting, and then some of them are like, that's okay.
All right. So you also like to get something out of the actual content that you're doing, as opposed to just worrying about, where the next kind of paycheck kind of thing's coming. I mean, there's people that I've known that just like, I don't really care what it is. If I get paid, I'm good, whatever. But then there's also people that's just like, I would actually take less money to be able to work on this type of thing because I just enjoy it more.
That is definitely preferable, and especially if it's going to be a longer project. Like if it's only going to be a shoot that's a week or less, then I don't care, like whatever. But if I'm going to be working on it a month or more, then I want it to be a really good project because that's going to influence, because it's long days. I mean, it's a minimum of 12 hours. And so I want to, even if I don't necessarily get something out of, so a lot of times if it's a movie, we don't film the scenes in order. So if I haven't already seen the script, I don't know what's going on. It's almost like a puzzle. You're putting all these scenes that you filmed together in order. You're like, oh, well, did this happen? Or do they know that yet? Because I know that, because it's not in order. But the approach is different. So coming from like a lighting standpoint, so I grip, but on something that it's a written piece, right, then we have a lot more time to set up and control, and we're looking at, okay, how do I want to light this, because this is going to affect the mood and how people perceive it, the color of the light, how soft it is, how harsh it is, what angle it comes from. You're really painting it, and you are affecting, influencing how people perceive it on a more subconscious level, on how they think of what's happening. Is it ominous? Is it happy? Is it whatever? And we have a lot more time and a lot more thought goes into that. Whereas if you're doing something like reality, there's less, you end up being in the same places because you're following the same people. So you're in the same places over and over again, and you're lighting mostly just for general exposure. I mean, there's a little bit more that goes in. You want it to look, nice, but it's not as creative and thoughtful. It's more of, have we covered everything where you can see what all's going on? And there's just a lot less creativity involved and a lot more, get it lit, record, go, get it, go. And it's just it's not as fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. I can appreciate that. Yeah, it makes complete and total sense. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Everybody's going to have different preferences on things they like to do, what types of things, projects they like to do, and all that kind of stuff. But I was curious because, once again, coming from the music background and things like that, I know that there's definitely things that I like to do, prefer to do, and oh hell no, I will not do that. So I wasn't really sure what your preferences were, and as far as the world that you live in with all that and stuff too. But I mean, once again, I mean, getting back to kind of the relevancy of the topic at hand and stuff. I mean, I'm sure that schedules like that can kind of vary a lot, kind of be a little bit all over the place and stuff. So how do you find consistency in order to be able to fly your birds and stuff like that in the midst of all this?
So the benefit of freelancing is you can pick your schedule. Like you can choose to do a job or not. There's also the benefit of out here, although until recent years it's moved more towards the fall, but a lot of productions, it kind of cycles here in Oklahoma. So there will be like several years where everything is filmed in the summer and nothing happens in the spring or the winter. Spring is especially bad because it's tornado season, right? So because a lot of our work is on location, it's very impacted by the weather. So people will film over the summer, which most of the time, if you're doing falconry, you're like, oh, your bird's molting, But if I'm like, hey, this doesn't work, it's too many jobs behind, like in a row, or I don't like the schedule, or it's too far, I can be like, not that job, I can pick a different job. I can generally get an idea of what that schedule is going to look like ahead of time because I like night shoots. If I can get on something with a night shoot, I'm happy, but then that leaves me early mornings open or afternoons or whatever. So there's some flexibility there. And on top of that, you get the schedule ahead of time and you can look and see, okay, it's going to progress in a certain way. These are the days that I'll have working on location. These are the days that I'll have off. And you can kind of, at that point, plan ahead of time. And then the rest of the time, it's you work and then you don't work. You might work a couple months in a row. You might work a couple days and then be off for a month and then have another thing. So there's also a lot of downtime that I can fill with other things, like falconry and whatever else. It's not consistent.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of, especially if you freelance, and especially if you kind of live in that type of world. Yeah, I mean that can be both a positive and a negative, of course. I'm sure it's probably also not fun sometimes having to worry about where the next set of income is going to come from and stuff too, and all that. But so I mean, because you freelance and things like that, I mean, did you kind of start your own like LLC for your own did you kind of set up your own business entity to kind of filter in and out with your freelance stuff, or do you just kind of do a normal
No, I've just done like normal contract work. Someone's like, hey, I have a job. These are the dates. You available? And I'll either be like, yes or no. Yeah. I do also have the benefit of my husband works full time. Mm-hmm. And he's also very, very supportive. And so like, even when there's times where I don't have work, we're not like super worried about not having money for the bills and stuff like that, which gives me a lot more freedom in picking jobs and adjusting schedules and not having to worry about so much financially, because he takes care of a lot of that, and I'm super, super fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I just I know people that prefer just to go kind of like a straight 1099 route, and other people that kind of start their own whatever like business entity to kind of filter in and out different stuff or whatever. I'm always curious to find out what people kind of do on that side of things too. Once again, not necessarily relevant to falconry, but once again. If you are constantly kind of worrying about, just kind of which was going to come next and whatever, which job is going to come next versus, I mean, and it is good that majority of your work does come during the summer. I mean, I'm sure that aspect of it is convenient, but, I also didn't know if you were one of those kind of types of people too that, just kind of using almost like a bateman and stuff like that as an analogy. Know lots of falconers that prefer to try and work and make as much as they can during like the summer months and stuff, so they can take as much time off during the winter and like the falconry months and stuff too as they can. And so I mean, does that kind of almost sort of a little bit happen by default for you then, with the variation of the schedule and the more the prevalence and filming and stuff more for the summer? Or?
Some years, yeah. Because like I said, there is a cycle. The majority of my career has been that way, where most of our stuff is in the summer. There was a few years where just for a few years it was winter, and then it kind of swung back. So it kind of cycles like that. But I didn't get started in this until we were in a more stable, because like you said, there's times where you're really worried about when and where's my next paycheck. And we definitely went through some of that, especially early on in my career. When working, like I started working right after college, but my husband was still in college. And so it was a single income he worked part of that time. But our money was really tight and our time was really tight. And so I wouldn't have been able to do this back then. And yeah.
Yeah, it's that's one thing that, I mean, granted, yeah, you can make aspects of falconry and stuff as cheap or as expensive in some ways as you want it to be, but it really helps to be able to have gas money and some of the other ancillary expenses covered, and being able to do this too, hawk food and
Yeah, I don't want to look at how much gas I spent last year.
Yeah, I don't think any of us really want to look at how much gas we ever spend, really, period. But yeah, I mean, there's been some times where, I mean, there's there's been times about a month or two period, and occasionally driving almost 3 to 4 hours every day for a solid month and a half to 2 months and things like that for certain things. And yeah, you kind of start to wonder if it's really worth it. But yeah. Well, I mean, what kind of falconry are you doing these days then?
So, I mean, it's July right now, so nothing at the moment. I just finished my apprenticeship this past spring, so I flew a red tail during that. I'm looking at maybe trying out a Cooper's hawk in the fall. I want to see what, I guess, style of falconry, to put it, like what type of like approach to hunting that I would enjoy the most. There's a part of me that's like, oh, I should get another red tail because that was a lot of fun. But then there's part of me that's like, I want to try some different things and find what I like. And I am not, at the moment, I don't want to try to do two birds at once. I'm like one bird. So I have been kind of swinging back and forth a little bit. But I'm trying to be like, okay, no, we're going to try it. We're going to do a Cooper's hawk. We're going to see what happens. I've had a lot of warnings about that. But you know what? I'm still in a learning phase, and I want to learn as much as I can, and I'm going to see what I can do. And you know what? There's a lot of people here I can also ask. If I have difficulty, if I'm like, what's not working, or should I try this or that? There's so many people, and everybody here is really, really helpful that I'm not too worried, because there is a support system that I can be, hey, help. Somebody help me.
yeah, no, it's good to have that, and you do have a lot of people around you that have had success with Cooper's hawks and stuff too, which is good. But the reason why I laugh, of course, is because it's like the age-old stereotype, and I fell into it also. Everybody falls into it. It seems like, everybody, they get out of their apprenticeship, and the first damn thing that they want to do is fly a Cooper's hawk. Whether it's pulling an eyas or trying a passage, whatever. I'm a general now. I can do all the things. I want to try a Cooper's hawk. They just want to jump to the straight, Oh,
I thought everyone wanted to do a Harris hawk right afterwards.
No. It's the biggest stereotype, of course, is going straight into a Cooper's hawk as a fresh general. Oh yeah, by far and away, at least from my perception anyway. It's just it's so funny how many people want to do it.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. You keep talking to more people, you'll start to see a trend for sure.
No.
But no, usually, Harris hawks, hell, a lot of people still usually fly Harris, sometime during their apprenticeship, at least in Indiana and other places I know of. in Indiana, we can have a captive bred, or Harris is our second bird, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people, will either just, whatever, they'll fly one or two red tails, and sometimes, just like I said, just want to go straight into that Cooper's hawk, whatever. It's like, it once again, it's just funny, just hearing somebody else, like, anyway. So, but yeah, so you didn't have any inkling as to, I mean, did you just fly the one red tail, or did Rob make you fly two separate red tails for
No,
your
it was the one red tail.
Okay.
And so I interviewed him over the summer and then worked with him again in the fall, or the next fall and spring. And that was Rob's recommendation. I know some people will like recommend flying two different birds.
Mm-hmm.
But really, his recommendation was to do the same bird 2 summers to see the developmental difference. And there was, and that was really interesting. The difference, wasn't a huge difference in behavior until we got into the second spring. But the confidence level and the success was much better. On top of that, it really also helped that the rabbit population was a lot better the second year. We had a lot of trouble finding game the previous year just because the population was so low. But
yeah, I mean, very rarely is a bird not better its second season, you know, for sure. But yeah, well, I mean, yeah, hey, whatever you decide to do, for sure, all the power to you. Everybody learns their own way, their own path, and I was guilty personally of wanting to do all the things, too soon, too quick, and I necessarily regret the paths that I took. But in retrospect, you won't really, unfortunately, you're going to be like a lot of people probably in that you're not going to wish you at least maybe would have done a different direction until several years down the road, and just kind of think, well, if I would have just, I might have been better off maybe going that route instead of this route. But that's all hindsight.
That's fair, because I do want to do all the things.
Yeah. It's really easy to get sucked into that trap. But I mean, what other things do you think are going to interest you? I mean, other than this the Cooper's hawk.
Well, I mean, at the moment, I was also kind of back and forth at first to whether I wanted to try a Cooper's hawk or a kestrel. I haven't. It's been interesting. So I've seen a lot of people hunt with red tails and Harris hawks and goshawks, because my sponsor hunts with a goshawk, which obviously has influenced me in my approach. But I haven't seen anybody hunt with a falcon, so I'm kind of curious about that. But I also don't want to jump into something that I don't even know what that looks like. I do know some people that do, and they've described some things about what that's like, but I haven't actually gone out and seen it. So I don't know on that. For me, it's obviously it's going to depend on what type of land and prey is available. But a big part of my enjoyment is watching the bird. I like it when they catch something. That's always exciting, and I like to see them succeed. But I also really enjoy just watching them chase their prey, whether they catch it or not. And so I think the flight style of the bird is going to have a big influence on what I end up doing long term. Just because I like watching them fly. I get really excited about that,
Yeah, well, I mean, I can totally appreciate that too. And yeah, unfortunately, in a lot of long wing flights, you're not going to see just a whole heck of a lot of it, except for that last 1 or 2 minutes.
That stoop.
Yeah, the stoop, and then the hit, and then you're done, basically.
That's what I've heard, but it also sounds impressive in its own way.
Oh, it is.
So I'd like to see that before I'm make any kind of decision of whether I want to look more into that or not. Because I'm really curious about it, but I just don't know because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, and it's a very wise approach. There's been a lot of things that I think a lot of people thought that they wanted to do, and then they saw it and they're like, I don't really so much want to do that so much anymore. There's a lot of things you can kind of romanticize in your mind as to what you think is going to look cool. I mean, there's still some things on that list for me too that I still haven't got to see yet that I think would be awesome, but I'll reserve judgment until I see it as well. But yeah, I mean, with your red tail. With your red tail, did you just primarily hunt rabbits then?
Mostly rabbits, yeah. I tried to get him on squirrels, and we did get a squirrel, but he just never really took interest in them. Like, as much as I tried and tried, he was like, whatever. But rabbits were great. He would clobber them.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested to see what your thoughts were. If you had a chance to see some cool squirrel flights.
I would love to have a good squirrel bird.
Yeah.
That was one thing I was really excited about, and I was like, we're gonna get all these squirrels. It's gonna be great. And I'm like, have enough for the bird, and then enough for a big dinner for my family, because I haven't eaten squirrels since I was a kid, and I was just super excited about it. And I also remember hearing. I had listened to some episodes of the Falconry Told podcast, which I believe was yours.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Previous. And I remember like one of the first episodes that I listened to describing hunting squirrels as dragons chasing tree ninjas. And I was like, that just sounds awesome.
Yeah, well, that sounds like something that Fincher would say too. You sure it wasn't that episode?
I don't remember what episode it was.
I don't remember either.
I just remember that like sticking out in my brain. I was like, ooh.
That's funny. I'll have to figure out which episode that was then. If it was one of odds are it was probably one of mine, just simply because. Well, I don't know. It might have been one of Israel's too. I can't remember, but I was the one that ended up covering most of the dirt hawking stuff, in the Midwest and everything. But and still do, obviously. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, you say that you love watching everything. You love watching the pursuit and stuff. And in my humble opinion, there's very few forms of, especially like dirt hawking, that you can do where the pursuit is as much fun to watch as like a red tail or another bird on squirrel. Because, with rabbit, you only see so much of it, right?
Yeah.
And it's very short-lived.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, chasing a squirrel, I mean, hell, I've seen squirrel chases last an hour.
Up and down and back and
up
forth
and down,
around, and then
Street,
where to go?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it really is like the best game of vertical 3D chess you can see in this. It's just my opinion anyway. I think a lot of people would agree with me, but if you're an admirer of watching the pursuit, it's very hard to be involved in something more fun than that. So yeah, it might be something else you want to consider too. Weigh your options. But well, and so I guess now would be a good time to ask you how you even got into this in the first place.
I mean, so like I hunted with my dad as a kid. We used to go squirrel hunting and stuff. But as far as like getting into falconry, I met my sponsor's daughter through work, like about a decade ago, almost. So she was already working, and the very first movie that I worked full time on, because when you start out, you just get like a day here, a day there when they need an extra hand on certain days. But the first movie that I got to work the whole thing, I happened to meet Amanda Rainey, and we hit it off really good. And then we finished the last, I think, week of the movie up in Enid, which is about an hour north of here. And anyway, so we were all in a hotel there, and then she ended up carpooling back with me. I just dropped her off here on my way home. I was living in Norman at the time. And so I met Rob at that point, and she was telling me all about like growing up in falconry. And I was like, this is so cool. And I was always really into animals and wildlife anyway. Like when I was little, and we'd go to the library minimum of once a week, usually like 3 or 4 times a week. And she'd like, you have to check out a book. Doesn't matter what the book is, you have to check out at least one book. And then we'd go pick, and I would go back to the nonfiction section and bring home some book about whatever animal that I hadn't read yet. Mountain lion, skunk, whatever. So I already had like an interest in animals and outdoors and stuff like that. And so that really piqued my interest. I also like my side of the mountain as a kid. But my mom had said, no, falconry doesn't exist. Nobody does that anymore. And so I was just like, oh, this is really cool, but whatever. And then when I met Amanda and found out, oh no, people still do this. This is a real thing. I was like, one day I'm going to do that. And I just had to wait until I was at a point where I would be able to do that. Because again, early on in my career, it was not, time and money and all this stuff was tight. So like later on, when I got closer to that point, I started volunteering at some different places, like sanctuaries, rescues, things like that, and working with some birds in that way. And then I met Rob through Amanda, and then we talked, and he agreed to sponsor me, and that's kind of how that got going.
Cool. And so this is you're going to be going into your third season then, right? And something like that.
Technically fourth. I didn't end up hunting a bird my first year of apprenticeship.
Oh, that's right. I do remember Rob mentioning something like that. You're technically had you do more like a 3-year apprenticeship.
Yes, so I had like a 3-year apprenticeship, but the second year and the third year I hunted red tail. Yeah, so technically this will be my 4th year licensed, but my 3rd year with a bird.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, everybody's got different, different paths, whatever. I mean, some people benefit from an extra year too. I mean, sometimes circumstances come up, people can't, do stuff for whatever reason, and like they want to do it, and honestly, I mean, I think for the most part, if everybody does it right, you're going to kind of more or less apprentice for 3 years anyway. It's just you're technically not going to be licensed the first year.
Gotcha.
In most situations, that's just, once again, another opinion of mine. I'm a big believer and a big fan of the you really need to spend a whole season watching and being in the field and kind of learning the ropes some before you actually go into your first official season.
Yeah. So. I did go out with a few people prior to that point, but not like a whole season's worth. I went, who all did I go with? I know I went out with Phil a few times, and I met up with somebody while one of the jobs I was working was out east away, well, still in Oklahoma, but like east. And so I was within an hour from a fella out that way. I think he was in McAllister. And so while I was working, I was like, hey, I'm going to be here a few weeks. I've got these hours off. I've got the weekend. Is anybody out that way? So I went out in the field with somebody out there and a few other people, but not like a whole season's worth. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and overall, what was some of the biggest takeaways and some of the different things you felt like you learned the most and that was important to you over the first 3 years?
The most important, I don't know what most important, because I think all of it is, but there was a lot just learning about behavior and motivation. So I had learned through volunteering some about like taking care of birds and weighing and feeding and things, but it is a lot different, a bird that lives in captivity versus a bird that can fly free and still hunt and stuff. And so I think learning about that and building that kind of a relationship, and learning a lot about how to find the game and setting up successful hunts, that was a big thing. So one of the things that I've heard a lot that Rob likes to say is success breeds success. And that really, really was true. And I was able to see that even better the second season hunting Courage, because there was more game. Like I said, the first season there wasn't a lot. So I had to I took to bringing dead rabbits with me on hunts, because it's like if we couldn't find anything at all, then I would, after hour, 2 hour, however many hours, and just couldn't find something on those days, I would toss it and drag it and let him think that he caught it and eat off of that. And that had a huge impact even then on his behavior in the field. But then once we actually started catching more live rabbits and finding them, that made a really big difference. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned, is like in his confidence, in his behavior, in his relationship with me, like all of that was impacted. So I would say that's a really important thing to learn. And I think that's also why so many people, when you're starting out, emphasize before you get a bird, find land that has game. A lot of people will really stress that. And I think it's because it makes that much of a difference.
Well, and the other things that people usually struggle with a lot, on top of just the other kind of common sense things that are obvious learning curves and stuff, is I mean, weight management and learning how to read a bird, the mannerisms. You already you kind of touched on one of those a little bit, but I mean, was it a struggle for you at all to kind of wrap your head around, the weight management aspect of things and stuff, and reading the behavior and everything?
I wouldn't say it was like a big struggle because, again, I had a little bit of familiarity with that, but I did definitely get better at learning a lot more of the more subtle cues. And there are things that obviously that I can look back and man, if I had known that when I started, I would have maybe done something a little bit differently for the bird, like if they got sick or something, because I did have to deal with some of that. And now I would be like, well, if I'd realized that, I would have caught that sooner, could have taken him to the vet sooner or whatever. But it wasn't super hard to learn about the weight management. And then there's that app that's really helpful because I am not a math person. So being able to calculate how much food, that was super, super helpful that way. And then just kind of learning about the cycle, how much it takes, how fast to metabolize it. Or I did have a little bit of challenge after the first summer bringing his weight back down for the next hunting season because I was like, I'm not sure how much I should reduce the food because I don't want to just like starve him all of a sudden, or how fast to reduce that. So it was a lot slower weight reduction in the start. Then people were like, oh, you should try to bring him down X grams per day. And I wasn't kidding. I was like, how is he not losing weight? I needed to reduce that more. I was just like afraid to cut the food portions, more than just a few grams at a time or whatever.
Yeah, it can be, especially with like red tails and Harrises during the summer and stuff. It's they seem to almost kind of gain weight sometimes on air.
Yeah, and he just held on to it and would not lose it. Yeah.
It takes a minute for sure. But then like you said, you got to be careful because, depending on how much you cut, after a while they'll just drop off. The metabolism will just like plummet, or it'll go real high and then they'll just like kind of drop off a cliff, so you gotta, it's definitely, it can be a challenge. And that's the reason why I ask, is because there's a lot of apprentices, especially, that kind of struggle to wrap their head around the nuances of how, the weather and certain activity and all that kind of stuff really affects everything. And how a bird behaves differently accordingly, to temperatures and
if a storm's coming in, or if it gets colder. I did kind of try to keep some things more consistent to make that easier. So keeping a regular schedule as far as like hunting every day or almost every day, which kept the activity about the same. If they're sitting, they're not like burning fat, versus if they're flying, they're burning a lot more. Or like during the hunting season, I brought him in for a lot of time, so that kept the temperature more consistent to help. He wasn't like inside all the time, but that helped kind of keep his metabolism in a closer range so that it was more consistent regardless of what the weather was.
I'm glad for you then that you were able to kind of wrap your head around that, pretty quickly then. And because like I said, it's hard watching people struggle with that, and and sometimes it's also hard, having to also be in the field with those birds too, and seeing someone still continue to struggle to grasp those concepts, because then you're continually having to help, beat for a bird that's not acting like it should and stuff and everything else. And it can be frustrating for everybody. So.
Yeah, but it's also, that's one of those things that having a good sponsor and a good support system is helpful with. Because like the first times I had him out in the field, I thought, okay, I've reached the benchmarks I should be at, where I've been told, he's coming instantly to the glove when we're working at home and whatnot. First couple times, his weight was still up, and they're like, bring it down 5 grams, just 5 grams, and those 5 or 10 grams, however far you get to from where you thought you were starting, also make a big difference in their behavior. And so sometimes you get up and you're like, I thought he'd be at this. He's a little bit high. Maybe what's the weather? Maybe not. But having people around me who were experienced who could tell me that, or, especially year one, or just, well, I say year one, year two, one with the bird, but also, be able to point that out. Okay, look at your bird. Look at how he's responding. You may be just a little bit high or just a little bit low. Oh, no, look at how he did today. That's perfect. Note that weight. What weight is he when we got here? Make a note of that. And giving me those reminders and pointers was also very helpful, because then it's not just up to me to think about and remember, because it is, but it also is a reminder, and kind of having people around you like that to mentor you also trains you to be in a mindset where you're observing those things and where you're thinking about and noting those things, because they have made a conscious point of it, which makes you make a conscious note of it, and it trains you to be in that pattern. And then also the year before, when I wasn't hunting a bird, I got to learn and see a lot just by observation. And then every time at the end of a hunt, we'd come back and Rob would ask, what did you learn? What did you see? What about this? And then he'd have me be involved in, okay, weigh him, put him out in the weathering yard, all that kind of stuff. And that also kind of trains you to be in that headspace where you're thinking about and noticing those things.
For sure. And, as far as just some of the, and this is another reason why I occasionally like doing, these recordings and episodes with, people that are kind of fresh out of an apprenticeship and stuff, because if all you do is talk to people that are super experienced and stuff, and sure, everybody kind of remembers kind of what the early days are like to a degree and stuff, but they may forget some of the finer nuances of some of the things that they maybe made mistakes with and then had to learn from and stuff. So on that note, or that being said, I mean, what do you think some of the bigger mistakes you made were, and what did you learn from those?
So one of the mistakes I did make, and it was the second season, and I knew better. A second season with Courage was one time I was out hunting rabbits, and there was a dead rabbit already out there. I don't know, something else caught it or what. Well, I'd come across it first, after I had already put him up in a tree. So we were already out in the field. He was loose, whatever, dead rabbit. So we kind of hit it under a real low, I think it was just I'm trying to remember. I think it was just a young cedar that was still real low to the ground. Kind of put it under that. So it'd be okay, if he doesn't see it, we'll just work away from it farther across the field. Well, he saw it. And he went down and grabbed it, and I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm not letting him eat off of this already dead rabbit. He didn't have to work for it. We haven't been in the field for 2 minutes. We're gonna go across and work and get us alive. He did. That was my headset. But he got down and he had it, and I'm thinking no. So I was I'm not gonna let him have this one. Well, I didn't want to give him a bunch of food from the pouch to trade off, because I was we just got here. I don't want to ruin this. So I didn't trade off. I tried to cover the rabbit, and I ended up taking it from him and robbing him of that rabbit. And he kind of remembered that for several weeks, and he was not happy with me. And when he did catch rabbits, he would try to he would mantle over it, or if there was another shrub nearby, he'd try to drag it under the shrub and hide. And I'm dude, you don't need to do that. Because before that, we didn't have any problems. He was happy to let me. He would sometimes, how young birds will kind of they'll do it's kind of like a food beg. It's not they're chatty or they're screaming because they're mad. He would do that sometimes until I got there and opened the rabbit up for him, crying like a big baby, After that, he did not. He never did that again, making those noises for me to open it. He did get back where he would sit and wait for me to come, and he was fine. But for a few weeks, he did not want me coming near because he thought I was just going to take that rabbit from him. So don't do that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I knew better. But yeah, that was one of the bigger mistakes. I think the second season hunting with him, I probably also should have worked more on socializing him with other people again. So when I first trapped him, I spent a lot of time, I spent several hours every day just working with him in general, but I also spent a lot of time going different places, visiting different family members or having friends come over just to get him kind of used to other people so that he wouldn't freak out. And that turned out really well because first vet check I took him to, we didn't have to hood him. We didn't have to cast him. It was all fine. The vet was able, check his keel, checked all the stuff. He had some worms that needed treated that he picked up, I don't know, at some point while we were hunting, because his kind of, I was like, he's slowing down. I don't see much going on, but something's not right. So we took him and I was like, oh, he has worms. And I know he didn't have it when I trapped him because the first thing I did was take him for a check when I got him. Anyway, the second year with him, right out of the molt, I was expecting to have to put a lot of work into getting him used to me again and all this stuff. And right off the bat, he was happy to step on the glove, take food, fly from the perch, and I was like, okay, cool. So he didn't regress a whole lot. We're good. So as far as behavior, he was doing really good. It was almost like he hadn't had a break over the summer at all. But as far as around other people, he was much more avoidant. And I didn't really start seeing that till I didn't get him hunted. Like I said, it was really slow getting his weight down because I didn't really know. So the first hunt I took him on was the week before NAFA. And then NAFA, last year was the first time I ever went to NAFA too, so that was cool. But so I got him out there and we had just got hunting again. And there's all these new people and I wanted to go learn and see things from all these different people. And he would not come anywhere near if anyone else was in the field. So end of the week, I ended up just taking him by myself and we caught some rabbits. But a rabbit on the last day. But all the days before that, when I go with other people, he would not come anywhere near. I would have to walk way out away from the group to get him to come out of a tree. And I saw some of that during the season, even at home, familiar places, if it wasn't people he was used to. So if I was hunting by myself, totally fine. If I was hunting with Rob, totally fine. There was another, or Mitch, because we would join Mitch fairly often. We'd hunt with him on some of the weekends. Totally fine. And then there was another kid who started, he was pre-apprentice last year. He's just starting his apprenticeship this fall. He was coming with us all the time too. So Courage got used to him. Fine. Anyone else though, I tried to take him out with Samantha. First time he bailed on us. We did have one hunt where her and I went somewhere and it was okay. Roped my husband into coming in out in the field with me once or twice. And Courage was used to him because he sees him every day. Still in the field, avoidant. My nephews, totally avoidant. Like anybody else. He was like, don't want to, he's like, you have to save me from all these people. I'm afraid they're not me. So that was another thing that I should have done more. Not assume that just because one behavior is consistent from one season to the next, that all the other things will be. Look at all the things and be like, okay, this is still fine, but I need to go back and work on that again. Don't just assume everything is going to be consistent across the board. So
cool.
Long way of saying that short thing.
Yeah. No, it's all good. And like I said, there's always things that people can learn from each other and stuff. And there's a lot of people that are thinking about getting into this or just gotten into it and stuff that they glean some degree of knowledge from this probably anyway. I don't know. That's what people tell me. But at any rate, I mean, it's always nice, I think, for new people getting into it or people that just start an apprenticeship to kind of get a fresh perspective of people that just kind of came from their apprenticeship and stuff too, as opposed to also just people that have been in this for a long time too. So, but anyway, all that being said, are you doing anything, with the state club? Are you, trying to be active in regards to other things related to all this stuff too, or?
Yeah. Like I said, I have volunteered in working with birds, but I'm a member of our state club of OFA. Mm-hmm. I have volunteered to set up because we take turns or people volunteer to arrange for the picnic, pick out the food, ask someone to be a speaker, reserve the location. So I've done that. And this year am serving on the board as secretary. So we just had our elections in June at our last picnic. So I haven't really done anything yet for that, but that's what I'll be doing as we progress through this year for that term or 2-year terms, whatever that is. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, just I try to be involved where I can. I think it's good because I think it's good to build community because it helps people. I also think it's mutually beneficial because anytime you get involved in any kind of community, whether it's a club or whatnot, one, you're getting help, and then two, you're giving back. Like your involvement gives back, and then that helps the next people and the next people. So I think those kinds of things are important. I also think something like our falconry clubs are really important because there's a lot of extra work that's done, maybe talking to legislators to help keep the regulations reasonable, where they are helpful to our sport and to the wildlife and the ecosystem, but not oppressive. And so having that, being a part of that also is important because, like I said, when the clubs are doing those things, they have to have a membership and participants to be able to do those things so that we as individuals can go out and enjoy it without someone saying, you can't do this. Well, yes, I can. And also, I know what the rules are because I've been involved in that, So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's important also for people to hear. I mean, an ongoing theme of all these episodes that I recorded this weekend with, with your fellow, I don't know, whatever, Oklahomians or Okies or whatever the hell the term is.
Yeah, I think normally
your fellow Okies.
I think normally it's Okies unless you go to the airport and then they have a T-shirt that says Oklahomies.
Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. Oklahoma Okies. Oklahoma. God. Anyway, your fellow friends and your partners in crime here is, I have been curious to see how many of the people I've talked to this weekend have served in either roles in state club, and it's really surprised me, how many of you all have been active in NAFA as well, and there's a lot of people from Oklahoma that have really been served, really important roles in both clubs. So, and once again, it's important for people new coming in. There's a lot of people I think that have this preconceived notion that if I'm new, whatever, I can't really be of much help or whatever, and that's it's just a misconception. And so someone like yourself that's fresh in, pretty much and already helping out, I mean, it's just proof that that's not the case. So
yeah, no, everyone can help in one way or another. It's just different people are able to help in different ways, So maybe I can't do one thing because maybe I don't have the experience or knowledge, or maybe I don't have the time and resources, but I can do this other thing. And the person who has the ability to do the first, maybe they're not in a position to do the second, Sometimes it's resource-based. There are things, okay, so you look at nonprofits, like OFA is a nonprofit. I think NAFA is also a nonprofit. Some people are able to help financially, but maybe they don't have time because they have, a lot of hours at work, and they have, maybe they've got a lot of their kids are in sports and they have all these other things, all these other commitments that take their time, but they've got a job with enough money that they can support financially, which is important because groups need funds to be able to operate and do things, right? But you also need manpower. So you might have other people who are like, man, I don't have the money. I have enough to do what I need to do, but I don't have extra, but I have time. And so there's always some way that you can help. It's just may look different, you to the next person, but that's fine. And it's important because you have all these different needs that, so just because you can't fill one role doesn't mean you can't fill another. And if you're looking at the state club, starting out, maybe you're like, I don't feel like I can serve or should serve on the board because I don't know what's going on. I don't even know how the club operates or whatever. That's fine. You can also volunteer in other ways, like for the picnic. You can volunteer to help host the picnic, which, like I said, is you find the food, the location, the guest speaker, which is also a cool point for new people because then you get to pick which topic you don't know about that you want to learn about. You're like, ooh, who can talk about this? You kind of get that advantage. Or maybe you help find donations for the raffle for the fundraiser. And so, or you help and you say, hey, who's setting it up? Can I come help set up tables and chairs and pass out the sign-in sheet or flyers or whatever that is? You can still help in other ways.
Yeah, very good point. And, to that end, I guess we can go ahead and, you've already shared a story or two, whatever. But is there any other memorable hunting experiences or particular experience with the bird that you've flown so far that stick out in your mind? Or
there was a lot of similar hunts because it's a lot of rabbits in a lot of the same places. I guess I don't know, story wise, if I'm not telling on somebody else and their bird, if I'm looking at my bird, I think some of the most memorable things is just like the difference in his hunting. So first rabbit he caught it on like the other side of a creek, right? And a young bird, he's on this rabbit, sitting on it, and the rabbit's squealing, and we're like, oh, great. So run, and I'm climbing down this creek, and the water's shallow, but it's pretty steep, right? So I get down, and the ground above is higher than my head. I can't see, and I don't hear the rabbit anymore. So I think, okay, maybe it gave up or it's dead or something, but I know he caught that rabbit because I saw him sitting on it before I climbed down. Well, by the time I climb up the other side of that muddy bank, there's no rabbit, and this poor bird is just looking around confused. So I think Mitch was with us too, so I don't remember if it was Rob or Mitch that was like, I was like, what happened? Because they were standing on the other side where they could still see across. They're like, yeah, he relaxed after he got it, and then after the bird relaxed, that rabbit took that opportunity to kick out and ran away, right? So that was early bird, first rabbit, poor guy's so confused. He did not let that happen again. And then you look at the end, one of the very last hunts I took him on into this past spring, he was just slamming through anything to get it. And I was in this area that was real thick thicket. And I went late into spring. So like we were having some trouble with the local red tails. We're getting more territorial. There were a few scuffles. There was one time where Courage just like straight up stole a half-eaten rabbit from another bird. So I was like, this is probably going to be our last hunt because we're having some conflicts happening at this point. But so I took him to this area that had, and instead of going in the morning, I went in the afternoon because this one place, that was the time, I had some other stuff going that day, but there was this one place not far from here where there's kind of a thicket there, and I don't know what kind of brush it is, but they're close together. They're wide enough that I can kind of zigzag between them, but not very quick. I'm pushing branches out of the way and whatnot. But because it's so thick, those rabbits, they love it. And any time of day, you can go there and find them. Usually chewing on the bottom of that brush. And so I was in there, and boom, there goes the rabbit. Down comes the bird. I see him down, and then the crash of the branches, and that rabbit's hollering, and I'm starting to push my way as fast as I can, trying to get to him, just trying to push through all this brush and stuff. And I had seen when we had first got there, like 1 or 2 red tails around, flying out, because it was a big enough area. They weren't like right up on us. They were well, as soon as that rabbit starts hollering, all of a sudden there's 7 of them. And I'm like, where did the other 5 come from? And they're all converging on my bird that I can't just get to because all the brush is in the way. And I'm like pushing the brush and trying to get through and yelling and hollering, and like took my glove off and was like waving it in one hand and pushing the brush with my other hand, trying to get there, just like yelling at these other birds to shoo them off. And that rabbit screaming and all that. And I get over there, and this poor bird, he had got himself stuck. He went through to grab that rabbit. He got a hold of it with both feet. But he ended up, I don't know if he hit it through the fork of a branch or if he grabbed it and the rabbit jumped through. I'm not sure. But his legs and his head were leaned forward, reaching out through on one side, and his body and wings were trapped on the other side between the fork and these branches. And he was just stuck. And this rabbit is like squirming there in his clutches. And he is like, I am not letting this go. It's never getting away. And he can't move. He's stuck. And so just like that big of a difference was kind of funny. And he was like, I have it. And I'm like, what's going on? So anyway, I had to get him dispatch the rabbit, get the bird unstuck, all that. It was good. So that was kind of a fun way to end the season too.
Oh, at least it ended on a good note.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least, yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that though, because I mean, I didn't even realize this. I was, well, this actually wasn't too long ago whenever someone educated me on this. I think it was actually my New Jersey friends that educated me on this, but I didn't realize it. But everybody kind of initially thinks the reason why a rabbit screams or squeals or whatever like that is because it's scared or pain or whatever, and it's actually doing that to draw in other predators.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know if you knew that or not.
I didn't know that. Yeah, it works.
Yeah, they squeal like that so they can attract other predators to come in to try and compete with what's got them, so they can possibly
get away.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's how it was explained to me anyway. So.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know that, and he would have been totally at their mercy because he was stuck.
Yeah, I mean, you said so. All these other birds were coming in and stuff. I mean, it makes, once again, that's proof that kind of, yeah. So, another wrinkle in your brain for you. So, but yeah, so cool. Well, I mean, I guess we can go ahead and get a piece of advice from you then, and that you might want to pass on to other people possibly wanting to get in or already in it or whatever, and then we can go get some steak that I've been craving this whole weekend.
Yeah. Best piece of advice is like be open, like not just open to advice, but always be open and watching for new things, because you're always going to learn and see something new every time you go out. You might have the same results, A to B, but all the little things that happen between that, with all the different situations and variants in where you are, what the birds do and the weather, all of that you're going to learn something different. And just put yourself in a mindset where you are actively looking to learn something.
Cool. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to share or any last thoughts before we call this good and I can get one of these famous Oklahoma steaks? I just keep hearing so much about it. I mentioned I'm looking forward to steak. I like steak.
I don't think you like steak. I think we need to take you to salad place. Yeah.
I might get a salad with my steak. I don't really know yet. I'll plenty of time to think about that on the way to said steak place.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah.
But no, thanks for joining and for being a part of this. And
thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing, the experiences you've had so far in your first few years and stuff. And hopefully, I wish you the best if you decide to go ahead and take on that Cooper's Hawk task or whatever challenge that you were thinking about. And, hopefully it works out for you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this season and whatever else.